Pictures, like memories, are part of our legacy. They're a great way to reminisce.
But before the advent of camera and all it heralded, portrait painting were the most effective means in recording images of people.
From oil on canvas to color on silk and ink on paper, portraits are like time capsules. They offer us clues about people and their lives in the past. So to explore this ancient art form, we now embark on a journey into portraits, from past to present and across different cultures. The Tsinghua University Art Museum in northwest Beijing was founded in 2016. It houses a rich collection of old artworks. And today, we're being given a private viewing of some of its Qing Dynasty portraits.
What we are looking at is actually a historical character. This character is called Su Wu. Su Wu Muyang is a very famous Chinese story.
Su Wu was a Chinese diplomat during the Western Han Dynasty. During a mission into the foreign territory, he was captured, detained, and later exiled. He was forced to herd the rams for years before being able to go back to his own homeland. Despite suffering many hardships, he remained faithful to his mission and home country. His story has since been regarded as the epitome of faithful service, making Su a popular subject in Chinese art. I'm curious why, of all the paintings depicting Su Wu as a shepherd, the work by Ren Bonian has become especially famous.
Because in his generation, and especially his style of the portraiture is very, distinctive in a way, because he have a very unique way of using the lines. When you look at the lines on his robe, it's like painting a rock. Very hard and straight, confirmed lines to create, an old man covering the robe is like covering within the rock. And when you look at the face, it's actually, in comparison, it's quite detailed. But look at the sheep.
It's very expressive.
Yeah, it's very expressive. That's his style.
Chinese portraitures focus on presenting the inner spirit of their subjects rather than aiming for a realistic depiction. Artists work with lines and space to make the form show the subject's personality and demeanor. In this painting, kings of great distinctions were depicted as being taller and bigger than their true selves, while less respected monarchs looked dispirited and unfriendly. The production process of Chinese portraits also varied in contrast to the West. Chinese artists did not sit with their canvas in front of their subject. They studied them, then worked from memory based on their impressions of their client. This approach helped artists present portraits that brought about the subject's inner character rather than highlighting an outward likeness. Now, portrait albums were a rare thing in ancient China. Yet from the few relics that are available, we see one family's attempts to record their ideal self-image. In addition to portraits of historical figures and family portraits, Chinese ancestral portraits form another important painting category.
What can you tell us about this particular portrait when we compare to portraits in the West?
For the Western portraiture is, for example, I'm a painter, I paint you as a sitter, so you paint, face to face for a period of time. But this particular portraiture for the Chinese way, especially in Qing Dynasty and Ming Dynasty, was to worship the ancestors. Most of the portraiture actually not painted during the sitter was alive. The main difference is that the Chinese ancestors' portraiture are using two-dimensional technique. So it's not like the Westerns you're using 3D. So you have lights and shades. And for example, when you look at the hat, there's no shade at all. All you can see in this painting is very clear black counter lines. Because when Da Vinci actually starting to paint the portraiture and using the portraiture as a theory, he was mentioning that on human body there's no line. So human body is round, so you have to have spaces. But for Chinese portraiture, our tradition, we don't actually, create spaces during we paint the portraits. We only use lines instead of using lights and shade.
Portraits of people's ancestors were commonly used for family rituals in ancient China. Properly honoring the spirit of their ancestors could bring them health, prosperity, and longevity. Chinese believe that a relationship continues between the deceased and the living.
This is a very well-preserved painting, and also all the details, all the patterns of the clothes, and specifically this lady is definitely from a royalty herself, because you can see the dragons here. Because common people are not allowed to have dragons. Even from the politicians, even prime minister by then do not allow to have dragons. Only the royal families can have.
Exhibitions featuring Ming and Qing dynasty portraits have garnered public interest in recent years. In the summer of 2022, the National Museum of China presented 50 portrait paintings from its collection. Now, take a look at this painting. Do you notice anything familiar? Right, the use of light and shading. Isn't it a fascinating crossover between East and West? So to learn more about the integration of Western painting techniques in Chinese portraits, I'm meeting with an art enthusiast.
比如说，现在我们很熟知的南京藏的那一套名人12像，从造型方面啊，还是色方面都有西洋的一些东西在里面。
Xie explains that traditional Chinese portraiture took a great leap forward during the Ming and Qing dynasties. European missionaries who served as artists in the imperial court worked together with Chinese painters. They exchanged ideas and explored new painting styles that assimilated the best of both worlds.
而到了乾隆以后呢，就完全怎么说呢？那种审美方面的转变是很快的。比如说郎世宁给乾隆画的那一幅《大阅图》，那张就是完全淡化了线的作用，用色彩进行塑造。
One of the perks of living in Beijing and working in my industry is that you get to go to exclusive events like the one we're about to head to next. At the China Millennium Monument, we're waiting for the unboxing of a portrait painting by Vincent van Gogh.
So inside that box,
Yeah.
there's the mostly anticipated painting
Yes.
by Van Gogh.
Because so far, not many Van Gogh's painting actually travel to Beijing, and especially portraits. Here we go. That's it. This is it, the gardener, and some people call it as a Provençal peasant.
This portrait of a smiling man in brightly colored clothes known as the gardener was painted by Vincent van Gogh during his stay at an asylum in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. I'm curious why the simple life of peasants made its way into many of Van Gogh's paintings during this period.
Van Gogh has been influenced by the 19th century realism. For example, the French painter François Millet, and he is specialized on painting farmers because at that time they were against with academies, because academies are, they prefer the historical painting, mythological painting. But for academic rejects like François Millet and Gustave Courbet, those realist painters are prefer to capture the real, ordinary life, because Van Gogh was hugely influenced by Millet. During this period, he actually copied a lot of paintings by Millet. And his idea is also to capture the real essence of life, not only about social status, because his focus, because he came from ordinary background. For example, you look at Van Gogh's shirts, you can see all the strong colors, bright colors in combination together. So light up an ordinary gardener, which he have no social status, he just ordinary people. But because of all the brushwork, you can see Van Gogh's brushwork is very strong, very intense, and very passionate about, to portray ordinary people. So I think that's the most interesting and most touching elements about Van Gogh's painting.
While we had the gallery all to ourselves for this exclusive viewing, the sight of a mesmerizing lady caught our attention.
By the 19th century, the photography has been getting more and more popular. So you can get a very, a serious and official photo from the camera. So why you have to ask a portrait painter to paint a similar one? They prefer to ask the portrait painter to paint something different. So Bodini actually provide the something different, because Bodini himself is a very close friend with Edward Manet and Edward Degas. So he's familiar with how the Impressionism, how to paint. So he combined the technique all together to create a unique portraiture.
Now from Western portraits, let's return to Chinese self-portraits.
In the history of Chinese art, however, scholarly painters were quite shy when it came to selfies. They prefer to manifest themselves through calligraphy or landscape art.
Self-portraits, however, were not entirely absent. This 73-year-old quirky-looking man is the eccentric Qing Dynasty artist Jin Nong. A penetrating gaze, hands collapse above the waist, contemplative yet ready to fight. This robust young man is Ren Xiong. As China ushered in the 20th century, trends in modern Western art inspired many Chinese masters, and it showed in their self-portraits. Now, this artist is from a whole new generation compared to his predecessors. He's a contemporary artist by definition, but paints self-portraits on the side as one of his long-term projects.
我在最开始高中画自画像的目的其实比较单纯，我当时需要进行基本功训练，而需要找到一个比较稳定的肖像模特。我觉得镜子里的自己是一个非常稳定的肖像模特，
也是免费的。
对，免费的，随叫随到。所以这是我开始自画像创作的一个目的。2010年左右，我开始在油画自画像中加入了我对反经验绘画的实践。在经验绘画中，我们认为我画的这真的是一个人，这画的真的是一个眼睛，这画的真的是一个嘴。那么反经验绘画，它可能会用另一个角度来看待我们眼中的一切，它可能是红色。一些黄色、一些黑色而已，类似迷彩图案的那些色斑，用这种角度去看待自画像、看待绘画、看待我们眼前的世界，再进行创作。
Painting self-portraits has become a lifelong project for Wenling. He says the experience unwinding practice continuously gives him new perspectives from which to view the world.
Whether it be portraits of others or themselves, artists from the East to West have adopted a variety of ingenious methods and perspectives in visualizing their subjects.
Different cultural and historical backgrounds generate paintings with varying themes, techniques, styles, and aesthetics. So it's only natural that portraits from Italy or the Netherlands look vastly different to those from China and serve completely different purposes.
When we put those differences aside, Portrait paintings offers us a visual account of how artists see themselves and others in their works and how the human consciousness develops over time.
Lin Lin, CGTN.